Okay. This is another Clarion call presents words. And today's word is abortion. And this is brought to you by the twoolivetrees.org. Okay. So I'm going to go through this presentation really quickly. And hopefully I'll do a very succinct job and make these points clear and concise. So first thing we want to do is define abortion, and again I'm using the 2004 Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and the definition of abortion based on this 2004 dictionary is the spontaneous or induced termination of a pregnancy after, accompanied by, resulting in, or closely followed by the death of the embryo or fetus. Now, when I saw this definition and looked at it thoroughly and thought about it for a second, I said, hey, we got to define certain words, because the common pro-choice argument is that this is not that whatever's growing inside the woman is not a living entity, and so forth and so on. These types of arguments, and the parasitic argument, that the child is a parasite. So I decided that we had to define certain additional words, being embryo, fetus, born, and birth. Okay. Now, in the same dictionary, the definition of an embryo is a living thing in its earliest stages of development. So based on that, the argument that it's not a living thing, just based on definition, we could see that argument is flawed based on definitions. Not making any philosophical analogies or interpretations of these words, just straight out of the definitions, which generally are we give a common consensus to the dictionary. Not that we all agree with the definitions in the dictionary, but we generally give a common consensus by using the dictionary as a source of meaning of words, right? So on to the next word. Fetus, as defined by the same dictionary, an unborn or unhatched vertebrate, especially after its basic structure is laid down. Okay? Now, again, you can get into philosophy about, well, when is the basic structure laid down? When is that? Is it when the zygote attaches itself to the uterine wall, or is it some other point? Is it the when they join together, when the two sex cells join together and become the zygote? Is that the basic structure? But we're not getting into a philosophical debate about that. We're just looking at the definition, and the definition again is an unborn or unhatched vertebrate, especially after its basic structure is laid down. Okay? Now, because the definition of fetus mentions unborn, we have to figure out what born is in order to know what it means to be unborn. Okay? So, born, by definition, same dictionary, is brought into life by birth. Okay? Not that the entity brought into life by birth is not alive, but that it is brought into life as we understand it by a process known as birth. Therefore, we have to define what is birth. Now, by definition, birth is the act of bringing forth young. Okay? As we know it, this is, the labor process, going through labor and pushing out a child out of the uterus and the womb through the vaginal canal. Bang, we have a birth. Now, if that is the understanding of what a birth is and what it means to be born, okay, then we have to come to the conclusion that there has to be a deeper composite definition of abortion. Now, as I see it, the composite definition of abortion, based on the previously defined terms, abortion is the spontaneous or induced termination of a pregnancy after, accompanied by, resulting in, or closely followed by the death of a living thing in its earliest stages of development, or a vertebrate, that has not been brought forth or hatched, especially after its basic structure is laid down. Okay? Sounds like a real complex definition. It's not at all. It's not at all. What it means is that an abortion is either a spontaneous or an induced termination of a living thing that has not been brought forth out of the womb. Okay, that is simply what it means. And if we understand that, then we would have to assess that an induced termination means to murder a living thing. If you're gonna induce the termination of a living thing, that is to murder that living thing, without question. This is not a philosophical argument. This is based on the definitions of these terms. Okay? So because I am a religious man, I have to look at what the Word of God has to say about things before I make my opinion, because I believe God is the ultimate authority, being the creator of all things. So I want to turn to Exodus 21, verses 22 to 25. I'm going to give you a moment, if you have a Bible, to look it up, because yes, you may be seeing the verses on the screen, but some people mistranslate verses, skip words and things. I want you to go to the verses and see that I'm pulling straight out of the King James Version, as you can see. And these verses read, "If men strive and hurt a woman with child," okay, so there's a pregnant woman, "so that her fruit depart from her," okay, "and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. And if any mischief follow, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe." Okay, this is Exodus 21, chapter 21, verses 22 to 25 in the King James Version. Now, let's put this in context. Strive in this context means to struggle. If men were fighting and accidentally hurt a pregnant woman, then there shall be a punishment according to the Bible. So this is based on an accident. Okay. Mischief in this context means harm. So if further harm came to the woman besides the loss of the baby, severe punishment was to be implemented. Okay, so if her hand was bruised, if she lost her hand, if she lost her life in this struggle or what have you, there was supposed to be even retribution. Okay, this is the Word of God. It's not my opinion. It's the Word of God. If you subscribe to the Bible, then you got to understand it. Now, notice that the description in Exodus is of an accident. I mentioned this before. It is of an accident. If this was the punishment for an accident, then we got to raise this question. Then what is the punishment for an intentional event? What is the punishment for an intentional event? Okay, well, that was already outlined, and it's outlined in 2 verses. We can look at it. Okay, to cause a death intentionally is a murder. Okay, it's murder. There's already laws against murder.